All right, get ready, because today we are going deep on some really high-level English vocabulary.
Yeah.
20 words to be exact.
Wow.
That can really level up your communication.
Absolutely.
I bet you're probably thinking, well, I already have a pretty good vocabulary.
Right.
You probably do.
Yeah.
But this deep dive isn't about,
Yeah.
learning those basic words, like an A. It's about unlocking these hidden gems, these power words that can help you express yourself with more nuance and clarity and impact.
For sure.
Now, our source material today is this podcast boldly titled,
Okay.
If you know these 20 words, your English is top 1% worldwide.
Wow.
Now, bit of a clickbaity title for sure.
I was going to say.
But the words themselves, they're actually pretty intriguing.
I agree.
And they were, I think, carefully chosen for their versatility and ability to convey complex ideas effectively.
And this isn't just about sounding smart.
Right.
It's about having the linguistic tools to articulate your thoughts.
Exactly.
With precision and power.
Exactly. So let's jump right into our first word, eloquent.
All right.
Now, I'm guessing you're familiar with the basic definition, being able to express yourself clearly and persuasively.
Right.
But I'm curious, when was the last time you used the word eloquent?
Oh.
Was it to describe a captivating speaker, or a beautifully written piece of prose, or maybe even a perfectly crafted argument?
What's fascinating about eloquent is that it goes beyond mere fluency.
Okay.
It suggests a certain artistry in the way you use language.
Okay.
It comes from the Latin word eloqui, which means to speak out. But eloquent implies speaking out in a way that resonates deeply with the listener.
Right.
Think of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech.
Yes.
It was eloquent not just because it was well written, but because it moved people to action.
So it's about impact as much as it is about style.
Absolutely.
And that's something to keep in mind, listener.
Yeah.
As we explore these words, we're not just adding definitions to your mental dictionary. We're giving you tools to connect with others on a deeper level.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of intricately woven ideas, our next word is intricate itself.
Okay.
Meaning, of course, very detailed and complex.
Right.
You've probably used this to describe art, architecture, maybe even a particularly challenging puzzle. But I sometimes hesitate to use intricate because it can sound a bit, well, pretentious.
Sure.
What are your thoughts?
I think the key with intricate is to use it when the complexity is also beautiful or impressive.
Oh, okay.
Think of a spider web glistening with dew in the morning sun that's intricate.
Okay.
Or a watch mechanism with hundreds of tiny, perfectly fitted parts that's intricate too.
I see your point. It's not just about being complicated for the sake of being complicated.
Exactly.
It's about a level of detail that makes you want to lean in and really examine it.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about a word that's essential for navigating life's inevitable ups and downs.
Sure.
Resilient.
And this word is so much more than just bouncing back.
Oh, yeah.
Resilient suggests an adaptability.
Okay.
A strength that comes from being able to bend without breaking.
I like that.
Think of a bamboo forest swaying in the wind.
Yeah.
It yields to the pressure, but doesn't snap.
That's a great image.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about how resilience isn't just a personality trait.
Right.
It's something you can cultivate.
Absolutely.
Both in your personal and professional life.
For sure.
Speaking of which, let's move on to a word that's crucial for understanding ourselves and others.
Okay.
Perception.
Perception is the lens through which we see the world.
Yeah.
And it's inherently subjective.
Okay.
Two people can witness the same event and walk away with completely different interpretations. Understanding this is key to effective communication and building strong relationships.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder to always consider other perspectives.
Right.
Especially in today's world where it's so easy to get stuck in our own echo chambers.
For sure.
But sometimes, even with the best intentions, things can get lost in translation.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our next word.
Okay.
Ambiguous.
Interesting.
I'm curious, listener, have you ever received instructions that were so ambiguous they left you scratching your head?
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you've encountered a piece of writing so open to interpretation that it sparked a heated debate among your friends.
Right.
Ambiguity can be frustrating, for sure, but it can also be incredibly powerful, particularly in the realms of art and literature.
Think about a poem that uses metaphors and symbolism to evoke multiple layers of meaning.
Okay.
Or an abstract painting that allows each viewer to bring their own interpretations to the canvas.
Wow.
Ambiguity, when wielded intentionally, can invite deeper reflection and engagement.
That's a great point. It's all about context.
Exactly.
And speaking of intentionally using language to achieve a specific goal, our next word is endeavor.
Okay.
Now, we can simply use words like attempt or effort.
Right.
But endeavor carries a certain weight, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Yeah.
Endeavor implies a significant, often long-term undertaking that requires dedication and perseverance.
Wow.
It suggests something grander, more purposeful. Think of scientific endeavors to map the human genome.
Right.
Or artistic endeavors to create a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It evokes a sense of scale and ambition that sets it apart from a simple attempt.
So, listener, consider this.
Okay.
When was the last time you embarked on a true endeavor? What project or goal demanded that level of commitment and dedication from you?
Right.
What's fascinating about language is that sometimes even the most complex endeavors can be sparked by the simplest of chances.
Oh, for sure.
And that brings us to our next word.
Okay.
A word that's all about those delightful surprises life throws our way. Serendipity.
I love that word.
I'm a firm believer that everyone has at least one good serendipity story.
Absolutely.
What about you?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, mine led to a career-defining collaboration.
Oh, wow.
I was at a conference utterly lost in thought when I quite literally bumped into someone.
What?
Turned out they were a leading expert in a field I was researching.
No way.
We ended up having an impromptu brainstorming session right there in the hallway.
Wow.
And it blossomed into a fantastic partnership.
That's amazing.
Pure serendipity.
I love that story. It reminds us that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can lead to the most amazing opportunities.
Absolutely.
And speaking of doing good, our next word is altruistic.
Okay.
Now, altruism is often defined as selfless concern for the well-being of others. But do you think true altruism exists? Or is there always some element of self-interest involved?
That's a debate philosophers have been grappling with for centuries.
Oh, wow.
But regardless of the motivation, altruistic actions have a positive impact on the world.
Yeah.
It's about prioritizing the needs of others, even if it comes at a personal cost.
Okay.
Think of volunteers who dedicate their time to helping those less fortunate, or individuals who risk their own safety to rescue others in danger.
Right.
Their actions embody the spirit of altruism.
Absolutely. And whether or not it's purely selfless, the world definitely needs more of it.
I agree.
Now, shifting gears again, let's talk about a word that emphasizes precision and attention to detail.
All right.
Meticulous.
Okay.
It often brings to mind skilled artisans, those individuals who pour their heart and soul into perfecting their craft.
Right.
I'm thinking of watchmakers, calligraphers, surgeons, professions where even the smallest detail can make a huge difference.
Meticulous comes from the Latin meticulosus, meaning fearful.
Oh.
And while we don't usually associate meticulousness with fear, there's a certain level of care and precision involved that suggests a deep respect for the task at hand. It's not just about being careful.
Oh.
It's about striving for excellence in every detail.
And that brings us to our final word for this part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Persuasive.
All right.
You're likely familiar with the concept, being able to convince others to agree with your point of view.
Right.
But think about it, listener. What truly makes someone persuasive? Is it charisma, logic, passion, or a combination of all three?
Persuasion is a delicate dance between logic and emotion.
Interesting.
It's about crafting compelling arguments, understanding your audience, and appealing to both their hearts and minds.
Right.
Think of successful negotiators, charismatic leaders, or even that friend who always seems to get you to try new things.
Right.
They all understand the art of persuasion.
So we've covered a lot of ground, from eloquent speakers to meticulous craftspeople, from the power of perception to the unexpected delights of serendipity.
Absolutely.
And this is just the beginning.
That's right.
We have 10 more equally fascinating words to explore.
I can't wait.
But before we dive into those, take a moment, listener, to reflect on these first 10.
Yeah.
Which ones resonate most with you? And how might you start incorporating them into your own vocabulary?
Stay tuned as we continue our deep dive into the top 1% of English vocabulary.
Welcome back. Ready for 10 more words that'll boost your English game?
Yeah, I think these next few words really get at the heart of how we understand the world and our place in it.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Yeah.
Let's start with ephemeral.
Okay.
It's one of those words that sounds beautiful just to say, isn't it?
It really does. And that's fitting considering it describes things that are fleeting, temporary,
right,
but often incredibly beautiful, like a sunset, a blooming flower, or even a perfect moment of connection with another person.
It makes you want to savor those moments even more,
right,
knowing they won't last forever.
Absolutely.
Listener, what's something ephemeral that you truly cherish? Maybe it's the scent of rain on dry pavement.
Oh, yeah.
Or the sound of laughter echoing through a room.
Speaking of cherishing things, a word that encourages us to be truly present is cognizant.
Okay.
Now, you might be thinking, isn't that just a fancy way of saying aware?
Right.
And you're right, in a way.
Okay.
But there's a subtle difference.
I get that cognizant feels more active, more deliberate. Like I'm not just aware of something, I'm actively acknowledging it and its implications.
Precisely. It suggests a deeper level of understanding and responsibility.
Okay.
You might be aware of a problem, but are you truly cognizant of its root causes and potential solutions?
Right.
That's where the real power lies.
It's about moving from passive observation to active engagement.
Yeah.
And, that makes me think about how crucial it is to be cognizant of other people's perspectives.
Absolutely.
Especially if those perspectives are different from our own.
Of course.
Which naturally leads us to our next word.
Okay.
Empathy. You hear this word everywhere these days, and for good reason.
Right.
It's at the core of building meaningful relationships, both personal and professional. For sure. But it's also one of those words that's easier said than done.
It really is. True empathy requires us to step outside of our own experiences and try to see the world through another person's eyes.
Right.
It's about listening deeply, understanding their emotions, and responding with compassion. It's not about agreeing with them necessarily, but about acknowledging their feelings and validating their experiences.
It's about fostering connection in a world that often feels increasingly divided.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that means setting aside our ideals and focusing on what's actually achievable in the here and now.
Yeah.
Which brings us to a word that I personally find incredibly useful.
Okay.
Pragmatic. I'm a bit of a dreamer by nature, so pragmatic helps ground me in reality.
Sure, it's a valuable tool for anyone who wants to get things done.
Right.
A pragmatic approach focuses on what's feasible and effective, even if it's not the most glamorous or idealistic solution. It's about adapting to circumstances and making decisions based on logic and practicality, rather than getting bogged down in wishful thinking.
Sometimes, though, even the most pragmatic approach can't fully solve a problem.
Right.
And that's when we find ourselves facing a conundrum.
Okay.
A tricky situation with no easy answers. Listener, what's a conundrum you're wrestling with right now? Maybe it's a career decision, a relationship dilemma, or even just figuring out what to have for dinner.
Conundrums require us to think critically.
Okay.
Consider different perspectives and weigh the potential consequences of each choice.
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
It's about embracing the complexity of the situation and finding a path forward that feels right for you.
And sometimes the best way to approach a conundrum is with a spirit of kindness and generosity.
Oh, absolutely.
Which brings us to our next word, benevolent. It's a word that embodies compassion and goodwill towards others.
Right.
It makes me think of those individuals who dedicate their lives to making the world a better place.
Benevolent implies a genuine desire to do good, to help others without expecting anything in return.
Okay.
It's a powerful force for positive change in the world.
It truly is.
Yeah.
Now let's lighten things up a bit with a word that celebrates our unique quirks and personalities.
Right.
Idiosyncrasy. I find it endlessly fascinating how each of us has these little things that make us, well, us.
Absolutely. It could be a particular way of speaking.
Yeah.
A quirky habit. An unusual hobby, anything that sets you apart from the crowd.
Right.
And the beauty of idiosyncrasies is that they often become endearing to those around us.
They add flavor and spice to life, wouldn't you say?
They really do.
And sometimes those idiosyncrasies lead us to do things that others might consider bold, even daring.
Sure.
Which brings us to our next word.
Okay.
Audacious.
Interesting.
Now, there's a fine line between being audacious and being reckless.
Right.
Audacious implies a calculated risk-taking, a willingness to push boundaries and challenge conventions.
Yeah.
It's about having the courage to pursue ambitious goals, even in the face of doubt or opposition.
It's about that spark of daring that drives innovation and progress.
Right. Think of entrepreneurs who launch groundbreaking startups, artists who create unconventional masterpieces, or explorers who venture into uncharted territories.
Speaking of uncharted territories, let's talk about a word that's become increasingly relevant in our digital age.
Okay.
Ubiquitous. It means being present everywhere, and it's hard to think of a better word to describe the pervasiveness of technology in our lives.
Right. Smartphones, social media, online shopping.
Yeah.
They've become so integrated into our daily routines that it's almost hard to imagine life without them.
Absolutely.
Ubiquitous reminds us of how rapidly the world is changing.
Right.
And how important it is to adapt to these ever-evolving landscapes.
And in a world where things are constantly changing, where we're bombarded with information from all sides, it's more important than ever to approach challenges with a sense of grace and understanding.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our final word for this segment.
Okay.
Magnanimous.
Magnanimous.
Yeah.
It's a word that evokes a sense of nobility and generosity of spirit.
It is.
It's about rising above pettiness and resentment, even when you have every right to feel those things. Magnanimous often applies to situations where someone has won a victory, whether it's in a competition, a debate, or even just a personal disagreement. Instead of gloating or belittling their opponent, a magnanimous person acknowledges their worth and treats them with respect.
Right.
Even admiration.
It's about taking the high road even when it's tempting to do otherwise.
Right. And, that's a quality I think we could all strive for, regardless of our circumstances. So we've explored 10 more powerful words, each offering a unique perspective on how we communicate, interact with the world, and navigate the complexities of human experience. I'm curious, listener, which of these words sparked a new insight for you? What resonated most deeply with your own experiences and aspirations?
We'll be back shortly to wrap things up and leave you with some final thoughts to ponder.
We've journeyed through 20 words, listener, each carefully chosen for its power and nuance.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
Words are only as potent as our ability to use them.
Right.
It's like having a toolbox full of shiny new gadgets. They're useless if you never actually build anything.
Exactly. This deep dive was about giving you those tools, those linguistic levers to elevate your communication.
Yeah.
But it's up to you to put them to work.
Right.
Imagine trying to explain a complex idea to a colleague or craft a compelling argument in a meeting.
Okay.
Suddenly, these words aren't just vocabulary. They're your secret weapons.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So no more passive listening, right?
Nope.
We're challenging you to actively incorporate these words into your daily life.
Absolutely.
Don't be afraid to experiment, to play around with them in different contexts.
Yeah, just try them out.
Notice how others use them. Maybe you'll pick up a new trick or two.
Right.
And if you stumble, don't sweat it.
Yeah, it's all part of the process.
Even the most eloquent speakers had to start somewhere.
Exactly.
Remember, language is a living thing. It's constantly evolving. The more you engage with it, the more fluent and confident you'll become.
For sure.
Speaking of confidence, think back to that podcast title that kicked off our deep dive.
Okay.
Top 1% worldwide.
Oh, yeah.
Now, rankings are always subjective.
Right.
But the underlying message is powerful.
I agree.
Mastering language, really owning your communication.
Yeah.
That's what sets you apart.
It's about more than just sounding intelligent. It's about connecting with others on a deeper level, understanding the nuances of human thought and emotion, and expressing yourself with clarity and precision.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm going to leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
If these 20 words can elevate your English to the top 1%,
right.
Imagine the possibilities that open up when you continue to explore, to learn to push the boundaries of your vocabulary.
Absolutely.
What other linguistic adventures await? What hidden gems are still waiting to be discovered in the vast and ever-evolving landscape of language?
Who knows?
Keep seeking them out. Keep playing with words and never stop being curious. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Hey, listener, ready for a deep dive? You requested it. We're taking a plunge into the world of words.
Words that pack a punch.
Yeah. Your goal. Level up that English vocabulary. Sound super sharp and clear when you communicate.
That's right. It's about more than just sounding smart.
Right.
It's about using language as a tool.
Oh, I like that.
To get your ideas across.
You really nail it. And today, our trusty guide is an episode of the Fluent Edge podcast.
A language learning podcast.
Yes. And an episode claims, if you know these 15 words, your English is excellent.
Bold claim, right?
We're going to see about that.
We'll see if they live up to the hype.
We're putting it to the test. Okay, so the episode dives into 15 words. These words are not just like dictionary dust gatherers.
Oh, no.
They're words you can actually use.
In everyday conversation.
Yes, the kind of words that make people go, ooh, impressive.
Exactly.
The Fluent Edge gives us a definition and an example sentence for each word, which is super helpful.
It is, it's useful.
Now, what struck me was how versatile some of these words are, like articulate.
Oh, yeah, good one.
You can use it to compliment someone, like, wow, she's such an articulate speaker.
Absolutely.
But you can also use it for yourself as a goal, right? Like, I'm working on being more articulate in my writing.
It works both ways.
It does. Shows you how dynamic language can be.
It does. And articulate really boils down to expressing yourself clearly.
Yes.
Effectively.
Getting your point across.
And the example sentence from the episode really highlights that she's so articulate that she can explain complex topics in a way anyone can understand.
Powerful stuff. Okay, so on the flip side, we have superficial. I think we've all been stuck in those conversations that are just, well...
shallow.
Yeah, just skimming the surface.
Raw sparkle, no substance.
Exactly. And the episode points out that you can use superficial for more than just chit-chat.
It's true.
Relationships, trends, even analyses.
Like a superficial understanding of a complex issue.
Oh, interesting. So if a friend's only interested in the latest gossip, you could be like, our conversation felt a bit superficial. Let's dive deeper next time.
Yeah. Or you read an article that's just like superficial analysis.
Right. It's like a shortcut word to call something out for lacking depth.
It is.
Okay, so for those who are all about action, getting things done, we have pragmatic.
Ah, yes, for the practical minds.
The realists.
The doers.
Yes. Focused on solutions that actually work.
Let's stop theorizing and get practical.
Exactly. The Fluent Edge gives the example, I prefer a pragmatic approach to problem solving instead of getting bogged down in idealistic theories.
That's a good one.
It's about being grounded and effective.
Exactly. It's like that friend who always has a plan, cuts through the chaos.
That's so true.
And figures out the most sensible way forward.
Speaking of cutting through chaos, have you ever gotten instructions that were just like, what?
Oh, all the time. Like trying to assemble furniture with those terrible diagrams.
Oh, the worst.
It's like they're intentional, unclear.
And that's where ambiguous comes in. This word is gold for anything that's unclear.
Open to multiple interpretations.
Or just plain vague.
Yes. Like those instructions you were talking about.
The Fluent Edge even uses that example. The instructions were so ambiguous that no one knew what to do.
Classic. Happens all the time.
So frustrating. But
the worst. At least now you have the perfect word to describe it.
I'm adding that one to my vocabulary arsenal. Okay, let's talk about a word that makes us curious, makes us want to know more. Intriguing.
That feeling of, ooh, tell me more.
Yes. Like I was at a conference once and someone was talking about this new technology.
Okay.
And it just blew my mind. I remember turning to the person next to me being like, that's so intriguing. I need to know more.
And did you find out more?
Oh, yeah. We had a whole conversation about it. It's a great way to spark a discussion.
It is. It shows genuine interest.
It goes beyond a polite, that's interesting.
It does. All right, let's shift gears to compliments. Because good job sometimes just doesn't cut it. So let's talk about impeccable.
Ooh, impeccable.
Oh.
That's like flawless.
Perfect.
It's like, wow, you absolutely nailed it.
Exactly. The Fluent Edge really highlights how effective it is as a compliment.
How so?
Like, imagine someone gives an amazing presentation and you're like, your delivery was impeccable.
Oh, much better than good job.
Way better.
Right. It shows you were really paying attention.
It does.
And that you appreciate their effort.
Absolutely. But let's be real. Not everything in life is exciting and perfect.
Sadly, no.
Sometimes things are just tedious.
Tedious is the perfect word for those boring, repetitive tasks.
Like replying to endless emails.
Ugh, yes.
Yeah.
The Fluent Edge reminds us that it can be any activity that just drains your energy.
Makes you wish you were doing anything else.
So true. Okay, now for a word that requires some nuance. Cynical.
Ah, yes. This one can be tricky.
It's got that negative vibe, right?
It does. It's about believing that people are mostly selfish, distrusting their motives. But here's the thing. There's a fine line between healthy skepticism and just being negative.
So you're saying a little bit of cynicism can be okay?
I think so. As long as it doesn't consume you.
Right. Don't become that person who always assumes the worst.
Exactly. Like the Fluent Edge example, he's so cynical that he never believes people's good intentions.
Oh, yeah. That kind of cynicism can be isolating.
It can push people away.
All right. Let's move on to something a little warmer, fuzzier. Nostalgic.
Ah, the feeling of longing for the past.
Those good old days.
Remember when?
Oh, music is such a nostalgia trigger for me.
Music is powerful like that.
Certain songs can instantly transport you back to a specific time and place.
Totally. The Fluent Edge gives the example. Hearing that song always makes me nostalgic for my childhood summers.
That's sweet. And it's not just personal, right? Nostalgia can be a shared experience.
It can be a powerful way to connect with others who lived through the same era.
Like those iconic movies everyone watched growing up.
Exactly. It's a shared cultural memory.
Okay, let's talk about a word that's so relevant in today's world. Resilient.
The ability to bounce back from challenges.
Adapt to change. Stay strong when things get tough.
It's more than just bouncing back, though.
What do you mean?
It's about using those tough experiences to grow stronger.
To come out the other side even better.
Exactly. It's like someone loses their job.
A tough situation.
A resilient person wouldn't just give up. They'd see it as an opportunity.
To learn new skills.
To reinvent themselves.
I like that perspective. Okay, onto a word I love to say. Superfluous.
It's a fun one to say, isn't it?
It is, and it's perfect for describing anything unnecessary, excessive.
Anything extra.
Just clutter. And what I found interesting is that the Fluent Edge says superfluous can apply to both language and life in general.
Oh, I like that connection.
They give the example. Your email was clear and concise. Adding more details would be superfluous.
Makes sense.
But then you think about how often we have superfluous stuff in our lives.
Clutter, commitments we don't need, even thoughts.
It's like a call to simplify everything. Declutter your mind, your space, your life.
I love it. Speaking of decluttering our minds, let's talk about a quality that's so important today. Empathetic.
Being able to understand and share the feelings of others.
To truly connect on an emotional level.
Empathy seems more vital than ever these days.
I agree.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's so easy to get caught up in our own little bubbles.
Our echo chambers.
Yes, surrounded by people who think just like us.
But empathy, it's like that bridge to connect with people who are different.
Exactly. People with different experiences, beliefs.
It's about remembering that we're all human.
That we all have a story to tell.
Beautifully said. And the Fluent Edge really emphasizes being an empathetic listener.
It's so important.
Their example is, he's such an empathetic listener. He always makes you feel heard.
That feeling of being truly understood.
It's powerful.
It is.
Okay, time to face a fact. Things become outdated.
It happens to everything eventually.
Technology, fashion, even ideas.
It's the cycle of life.
And that's where obsolete comes in.
Ah, yes, for the things we leave behind.
We usually think of it with tech, like that old flip phone in a drawer somewhere.
Or those clunky old computers.
But it's fascinating to think about how obsolete can apply to so much more.
It can. Think about those old social norms, ways of thinking that just don't fly anymore.
It's like ideas can become obsolete too.
They can. It's a good reminder to be open to change.
To keep evolving.
Exactly.
Okay, on to a word that carries a lot of weight. Pivotal.
Those turning points in life.
Those moments that change everything.
The crossroads.
The Fluent Edge uses the example of a pivotal moment in history.
Big moments that shaped the world.
But it made me think about the pivotal moments in my own life.
The moments that defined your journey.
Exactly. Like a conversation I had with a mentor once that completely changed my career path.
Wow, that's huge.
It was. It's funny how we don't always realize we're at a pivotal moment until we look back.
Hindsight is 20/20, right?
It is. Okay, ready for our final word?
Hit me with it.
Let's talk about being perceptive.
To see beyond the surface.
To have those deep insights.
To notice what others miss.
And this ties back to some words we've already talked about, like cynical and empathetic.
It does. A perceptive person can see through a cynical facade.
To understand what's really going on underneath.
Exactly. Or they can empathize with different perspectives.
Even if they don't agree with them.
It's about seeing the world with a nuanced lens.
So it's about being attuned to what people say, but also how they say it.
Body language, tone of voice, those subtle cues.
It's like being a detective of human behavior.
It is. And it's a skill that can be incredibly valuable in all areas of life.
Wow, 15 powerful words. It's a lot to absorb, but I already feel like my vocabulary is getting a boost.
Don't worry, it takes the time to really internalize them.
And the good news is you can always revisit this deep dive and these explanations.
Exactly. And in the next part, we'll be exploring some practical tips from the Fluent Edge on how to actually use these words in your everyday life.
I'm excited for that. It's one thing to know the words, but it's another to actually use them.
Exactly. So stay tuned for part 2, where we'll put all this knowledge into action.
I can't wait. Okay, listener, we've got these 15 awesome words, but now what?
Now we put them to work.
Yeah. It's all about application, right?
Absolutely. Knowledge is only powerful when you use it.
Right. And luckily, the Fluent Edge doesn't just throw definitions at us. They give us tips on how to actually use these words in our lives.
Practical advice, that's what we need.
Yes. Their first tip is to pair the words with real-life scenarios.
To visualize how you'd actually use them.
Make them feel less like vocabulary words and more like tools.
Tools in your communication toolkit.
I like that. So, for example, imagine you're in a meeting and someone's presenting this vague plan.
Okay, lots of ideas, but no clear direction.
Exactly. That's your cue to use ambiguous. You could say, I'm finding the plan a bit ambiguous. Could we get some more concrete details?
Boom. You've just used a fancy word to push for clarity.
And action.
You're not just complaining, you're using language strategically.
I love it. Or let's say you're at a party and someone mentions a book you've been meaning to read.
Okay, I'm picturing this.
Instead of a generic, oh yeah, I've heard of that, you could say, that sounds like an intriguing read.
Yeah.
What did you think of the ending?
Ooh, that's good.
It elevates the conversation.
It does. Intriguing implies you're genuinely interested.
It's a subtle difference, but it makes you a more engaging conversationalist.
It does. Okay, here's another tip from the Fluent Edge that I like. Using these words when you compliment someone.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm always looking for ways to make my compliments stand out.
Me too. Because sometimes good job just feels a bit...
Quat.
Exactly. So instead, let's say a colleague gives a fantastic presentation.
They totally nailed it.
You could say, your presentation was impeccable. You really captivated the audience.
Impeccable. Way better than good job.
Right. It shows you were paying attention, that you really appreciate their skill.
And you can use it in everyday situations, too.
Absolutely. Like, you have impeccable taste in music.
Or your home decor is impeccable.
It's about being specific and genuine with your praise.
Okay, now for a tip, that might sound counterintuitive.
Ooh, I like a challenge.
The Fluent Edge says we should try using these words in our small talk.
Wait, really? I thought small talk was supposed to be, like, casual.
I know, right? But think about it. If you can sprinkle in some sophisticated vocabulary,
it could make you stand out from the crowd.
Make you more memorable.
I see where they're going with this.
So instead of that movie was good, you could try, the plot was intriguing, but the ending felt a bit ambiguous. What did you think?
Oh, that's good. It invites further discussion.
It's like you're taking small talk to the next level.
Leveling up.
Exactly. Okay, ready for another tip? Word substitution.
Oh, this sounds fun. Like a game.
It is. It's about consciously swapping out those everyday words for more impressive synonyms.
So instead of boring, I'd say tedious.
Yes. Or instead of perfect, go for impeccable.
Ooh, I like it. It's a fun way to challenge yourself.
And to make your language more vibrant.
More sophisticated.
And I bet the more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
Until those fancy words are just part of your everyday vocabulary.
Exactly. Now for the last tip from the Fluent Edge. Journaling with intention.
Journaling! I haven't done that in ages.
Well, they suggest using these new words when you're writing about your day.
Interesting.
It's a way to solidify them in your memory.
To make those words your own.
Yes. So instead of today was boring, you could write, today felt incredibly tedious, but I managed to stay resilient.
Ooh, that's powerful. It makes your writing more vivid.
More expressive.
I like it. It's like a personal vocabulary workout.
It is. So listener, those are some practical tips from the Fluent Edge on how to take these 15 words and really make them part of your life.
Put them into practice.
Yes. Before we wrap up, I'm curious. The Fluent Edge claims that if you know these words, your English is excellent.
That's a bold statement.
It is. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think mastering these words is definitely a step in the right direction.
It shows a certain level of sophistication.
It does. But I think true excellence in communication goes beyond just vocabulary.
Okay, so it's more than just knowing the words.
It is. It's about using those words effectively.
To convey your message clearly, to connect with your audience.
Exactly. It's about using language with purpose.
Like a skilled craftsman, using their tools.
I love that analogy. And just like any craft, mastering language takes practice.
Experimentation, a willingness to keep learning.
Exactly. It's a lifelong journey.
It is. And this deep dive is just one step on that journey. We've explored these 15 words, learned how to use them.
It's been a great journey.
It has. But here's the big question for you, listener.
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
Why does all this even matter? Why bother expanding your vocabulary?
Well, language, it's more than just a way to talk.
It's deeper than that.
It is. It reflects how we think.
How we see the world.
How we understand our own experiences.
So you're saying that by learning new words, we're not just improving our English.
Not just that.
We're actually changing how we think.
You got it. Expanding your capacity to think critically.
To engage with the world.
On a whole new level.
I like that.
Each new word.
Yeah.
It's like adding a new color to your palette.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
It gives you more ways to express yourself.
To understand complex ideas.
To connect with other people.
More deeply.
Exactly.
It's like leveling up in a video game.
I love that.
Unlocking new abilities, new challenges.
And the more words you master, the more you can achieve.
So listener, we encourage you, take on that challenge.
Take a few of these words.
Yeah, the ones that resonate with you.
And start using them.
In your conversations, your writing, even just in your own head.
You might be surprised.
By the impact they have.
How much they enrich your communication, even your thinking.
And remember, language is always changing.
Evolving.
There are always new words to discover.
New nuances to explore.
New ways to express yourself.
So keep learning. Stay curious.
Don't let that vocabulary gather dust.
Keep those linguistic horizons expanding.
This has been a fantastic journey.
It has.
We've delved into the power of words.
Their impact on our lives.
And we hope, listener, that you feel empowered to use these words.
With confidence.
With precision. Until next time, keep those vocabularies growing. All right, so are you ready to dive deep into some seriously cool adjectives that can, instantly make your English sound way more awesome?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think we all have those moments where we're trying to get an idea across, but you can't find the right word,
Exactly. And that's what we're going to fix today. We're taking a deep dive into a podcast script that's packed with 19 advanced adjectives, and these aren't your everyday words.
Nope, not at all. You know how you can say something's good, but it doesn't quite capture the whole picture?
Right. Like you could say a sunset is pretty, but that doesn't really do it justice.
Exactly. It's like you want to use a word that really packs a punch, something that truly captures the essence of what you're trying to say.
Yeah, it's like the difference between saying a sunset is pretty and saying it's breathtaking.
Exactly. One's just kind of blah, but the other, it's like you can almost feel the warmth of the sun on your skin.
Okay, so first up on our list is eloquent. What exactly do we mean by that?
Well, when we talk about someone being eloquent, we're talking about their ability to communicate in a way that's not only clear, but also super persuasive and even moving.
So are you talking about someone who can give a speech that moves people to tears? Or write a letter that changes someone's mind?
Exactly. Think of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. That's the ultimate example of eloquence in action.
Oh, yeah, I get it. It's not just what he said, but how he said it, the passion, the conviction.
Right. Eloquence is all about combining clear thinking with a certain artistry of expression. It's it's not just about saying the right words. It's about saying them in a way that captivates people and makes them really listen.
Makes them feel something.
Yeah, exactly. And, that's a skill that can be really valuable in all sorts of situations, from giving presentations at work to writing a really important email. If you can sprinkle in some eloquence, people are going to pay attention.
Okay, I'm sold. Eloquence is definitely a word I'm going to try to use more often. But now, how about we jump from the power of words to something a little more visual?
You're thinking about pristine.
You got it.
Pristine. Now, this word, it's more than just clean. It evokes a sense of untouched perfection. Think about those white sandy beaches you see in travel magazines.
Yeah. Those picture-perfect beaches that look like they've never been touched by human feet.
Exactly. Those are pristine beaches, not just clean pristine. Or imagine a vintage car perfectly restored to its original condition, not a scratch on it.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting it. Pristine is the best of the best, the ultimate level of perfection. No flaws, no imperfections, just pure, unadulterated.
Beauty.
Exactly.
And you know what? Sometimes life can feel pretty far from pristine, right?
Oh, tell me about it. I mean, let's be real. Not every day is a trip to a pristine beach or a ride in a pristine vintage car. Sometimes life is more like
mountains of paperwork.
Exactly. And that brings us to our next word, which perfectly captures that feeling. Tedious.
Tedious. Now, it might be tempting to just say it means boring, but it's actually way more than that.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Well, tedious is about that feeling of being stuck in a rut. doing the same tasks over and over and over again. It's like mind-numbing monotony.
Okay, I totally get it. Like you're talking about filing taxes or waiting in line at the DMV, or maybe even like attending a really long meeting that could have been an email.
Exactly. Tedious describes those tasks that drain your energy and make you feel like time is just crawling by.
Ugh, don't remind me. Okay, enough of that. Let's move on to something a bit more, I don't know, positive. How about perceptive?
Now perceptive is a good one. It's all about being able to pick up on those subtle cues and details that other people might miss.
So it's kind of like having a superpower. You can like see through the surface and understand what's really going on.
Yeah, pretty much. Perceptive people are really good at reading between the lines. They can tell when someone's not really okay, even if they say they are, or they can sense when a situation is about to go south.
They just have this like extra sense or something.
Right. And that can be a huge advantage in all sorts of situations, whether you're negotiating a deal, trying to build a relationship, or even just navigating a tricky social situation.
Okay, I'm officially adding perceptive to my list of words to use more often. But speaking of things that might lose their relevance over time, let's talk about obsolete.
Yes, obsolete. It's about things that have become outdated or no longer in use. Remember those old floppy disks?
Oh man, floppy disks. That takes me back. I haven't seen one of those in years.
Right. They're pretty much obsolete now. Or how about those old rotary phones? Or even paper maps.
It's crazy to think about how quickly technology can make things obsolete. What we think is cutting edge today could be totally outdated tomorrow.
It makes you wonder, right? What will be obsolete in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it that way. Okay, so obsolete is basically the opposite of innovative or cutting edge.
Right. It's about things that have been replaced by something newer, better, faster, more efficient.
Got it. All right, now let's shift gears again from the outdated to the, I don't know how to put this nicely, the blah. We're talking about mundane.
Mundane. Yeah, it perfectly captures that feeling of routine dullness. It's like when you're stuck doing the same things day after day and there's just no spark, no excitement.
You're talking about that soul-crushing feeling of being stuck in a rut.
Exactly. Think of a job where you do the same tasks every single day. Or a commute that's just an endless sea of traffic and boredom.
Or eating the same thing for breakfast every single morning.
Yeah. It's all about those aspects of life that just lack, that pizzazz. It's the absence of inspiration, of novelty.
Mundane is definitely not a word I want to use to describe my life. But I get it. Sometimes those mundane moments are unavoidable. But, even when life throws those curveballs at us, we can always find a way to, bounce back.
Right. You're so right. And that brings us to our next word. Resilient.
All right, tell me more about resilient. What does that even mean?
Resilient is all about the ability to overcome challenges and bounce back from setbacks. Those people who can handle anything life throws at them.
Yeah, those people who just seem to roll with the punches and come out stronger on the other side.
Exactly. Think about athletes who train for years and push their bodies to the limit, or people who recover from serious illnesses or injuries.
Or even kids, right? They fall down all the time, but they just get right back up and keep going.
They do. Kids are incredibly resilient. And what's cool? Resilience is something you can actually build over time. It's like a muscle you can strengthen.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we become more resilient?
Well, it's about developing coping mechanisms, building a strong support system, and believing in your ability to handle whatever comes your way.
So it's mindset is key.
Yeah, definitely. And it's amazing how these words we're talking about, they're not just about language, they're about human experiences.
Totally. It's like we're getting a glimpse into the very essence of what it means to be human.
Exactly. And it just shows how powerful language can be, how it can connect us to ourselves and to each other.
Okay, speaking of connecting, let's move on to a word that often sparks a lot of conversation and maybe even a bit of envy. Affluent.
Affluent. Yeah, that one definitely gets people talking. And, it's more than just being rich. It's a whole lifestyle, a level of comfort and security that goes beyond just having a lot of money.
So you're talking about those people who live in those fancy neighborhoods with the huge houses and the perfect lawns.
Exactly. It's about having a certain level of financial freedom and stability that allows you to live a certain way, you
don't have to worry about money constantly. You can travel and buy nice things and send your kids to the best schools.
Yeah. And it's interesting to think about the difference between rich and affluent. Like someone who wins the lottery might be suddenly rich, but they might not necessarily be affluent, you know?
Right. It's like affluent implies a certain level of like sophistication and, I don't know, established wealth.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a more long-term generational kind of wealth.
Got it. All right. Well, let's shift gears now from the material to the, I don't know, the philosophical. We're talking about profound.
Profound. This one's all about depth of meaning, insight, impact. It's like when you experience something that just blows your mind and makes you question everything you thought you knew.
You're talking about those aha moments that change your perspective on life.
Totally. Like when you watch a movie that stays with you long after the credits roll, or you read a book that just like completely shifts your way of thinking, or even just a conversation with someone that makes you see the world in a whole new light.
Right. Like those moments where everything just seems to click into place.
Exactly. And those profound experiences can be really transformative, you know? They can challenge us to grow and evolve as people.
Okay, from profound insights to, well, this next word is all about the details, the little things that make something truly special.
You thinking intricate?
Yes.
Intricate. Intricate is cool because it highlights the complexity of something, like all those tiny interconnected details that make up a whole. Think about like an incredibly detailed piece of art or a complex scientific theory or even a really well-crafted story.
It's like all those little pieces fit together perfectly to create something truly amazing.
Right. And it's about appreciating the beauty in that complexity, like taking the time to really see and understand all those little details.
Okay, from intricate to, well, this next word might make you want to break a sweat just thinking about it.
Hey, it's about arduous.
You got it, arduous. It's like difficult on steroids.
I like that. Yeah, arduous is a step beyond difficult. It's like a task that requires a lot of time, energy, and sheer willpower.
You're talking about climbing Mount Everest or running a marathon or maybe even just getting through a really tough work week.
Exactly. It's about those things that push you to your limits and make you want to give up, but you keep going anyway.
So it's like embracing the struggle, knowing that the reward will be even greater because of it.
Right. It's about recognizing that the most worthwhile things in life often require us to really push ourselves and persevere.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive so far. I feel like I'm already leveling up my English skills just by listening to you talk.
Me too. And we're just getting started. We've got so many more incredible words to explore.
All right, stay tuned, folks, because in our next segment, we're going to take a trip down memory lane with our next word, nostalgic. Get ready to feel all the feels.
You know, nostalgic is such an interesting word, right? It's like, it's not just about remembering the past. It's about that bittersweet feeling of longing for it. Like you wish you could go back and experience it again.
Oh, yeah, totally. For me, it's the smell of my mom's perfume. It just instantly transports me back to being a little kid, safe and sound.
Oh, that's so sweet. And it's often those sensory experiences like smells, sounds, even tastes that can trigger those really strong nostalgic feelings. Like our senses have this direct connection to our memories. It's amazing.
It's like a time machine in a bottle or something. Like this script mentioned 90s music, evoking nostalgia for childhood. And oh my gosh, that is so me.
Oh yeah, I get that. Certain songs can just take you right back to a specific time and place.
It's crazy. Like I can hear a song and suddenly I'm back in high school, reliving all those awkward moments and first loves. It's kind of embarrassing, but also kind of cool.
It's funny how that works, right? Like you can look back on those times and laugh at yourself, but also appreciate how far you've come since then. Nostalgia is kind of a mixed bag of emotions.
Definitely. And it's not just about longing for the good old days. It's also about understanding how those past experiences shaped who we are today.
Exactly. Nostalgia can be a really powerful tool for self-reflection and personal growth,
Like it helps us understand ourselves better.
Yeah. It lets us connect with our past selves and appreciate the journey we've been on. It can even give us a sense of comfort and inspiration.
So it's not a bad thing to feel nostalgic sometimes.
Not at all. I think it's a natural part of being human. It's about cherishing those memories, both good and bad, and recognizing how they've made us who we are.
You're making me want to dig out my old yearbooks and photo albums right now. But for now, let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk about a word that's all about precision and paying attention to every little detail. Meticulous.
Meticulous. Oh, I love this word. It describes those people who are super careful and precise in everything they do. They don't miss a thing.
You're talking about those people who color code their notes and organize their closets by shade of color, right?
Well, it can manifest in those ways, sure, but think about it in like a professional context. Think about surgeons or scientists or engineers. Those jobs require an incredible level of meticulousness.
Oh, yeah. One tiny mistake could have huge consequences.
Exactly. It's not just about being neat and tidy. It's about having a deep commitment to accuracy and excellence.
Okay, that makes sense. So meticulousness is about, like, striving for perfection in everything you do.
In a way, yes. It's about having high standards and paying attention to every detail, no matter how small.
Got it. But, let's be real. Life isn't always about black and white decisions and perfectly executed plans. Sometimes we're faced with choices that leave us feeling kind of torn.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like those situations where you're just not sure what to do or you have mixed feelings about something.
Exactly. And I think our next word captures that feeling perfectly.
Ambivalent.
Ambivalent, yes.
Yeah.
It's that feeling of being pulled in different directions. Like, you see the pros and cons of both sides, but you're just not sure which way to go.
It's like standing at a crossroads, trying to decide which path to take.
Exactly. Like, the script mentions moving abroad, how some people feel ambivalent about that. On one hand, it's exciting, a new adventure. But then on the other hand, it means leaving behind everything you know and love.
Right. It's tough. You're excited, but also kind of scared. Happy, but also sad.
And that's totally normal. Ambivalence is about acknowledging those mixed feelings and accepting that it's okay to not have all the answers right away.
So it's not about trying to force ourselves to feel one way or the other. It's about embracing the complexity of our emotions and, allowing ourselves to feel both things at the same time.
Exactly. It's about being honest with ourselves about how we really feel and not judging ourselves for it. That's a really good point. I think we often feel pressured to have it all figured out, but sometimes it's okay to just sit with those mixed feelings and, let things unfold naturally.
I agree. And sometimes those ambivalent moments can actually lead to some really valuable insights about ourselves.
They force us to really examine what we want and what's important to us.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to embrace ambivalence when it comes up. It's a natural part of life.
Okay, let's shift gears now from the complexity of emotions to a word that's all about pure, awe and wonder.
Are you talking about exquisite?
Yes. Exquisite. That's the one.
Exquisite is all about exceptional beauty, craftsmanship, quality. It's like those things that take your breath away and make you appreciate the artistry and skill that went into creating them.
Like a stunning piece of jewelry or a perfectly tailored suit or even a really delicious meal that's been beautifully presented.
Exactly. It's about those things that are just like on another level. They're so beautiful and well made that they almost seem unreal.
Like they belong in a museum or something. Okay, so exquisite is like beautiful, but with an extra layer of like sophistication and refinement.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's about recognizing and appreciating those things that are truly special and unique.
Got it.
Yeah.
But, let's be honest, not everything in life is exquisite. Sometimes we indulge in things that are a bit more, how can I say this nicely? Superficial.
You talking about frivolous?
Frivolous, yes. That's the word.
Frivolous is all about those things that are fun and enjoyable, but ultimately don't really have a lot of substance or value.
Okay, so we're talking about those impulse purchases, those late-night online shopping sprees where you end up with a bunch of stuff you don't really need.
Yeah, like that new pair of shoes that you just had to have, even though you already have like 10 other pairs just like it. Or those hours spent scrolling through social media, watching funny cat videos, when you should be working on that important project.
Oh man, that's so me. I'm totally guilty of spending way too much time on frivolous things.
We all are. And it's not that those things are bad. It's just about being mindful of how much time and energy we invest in them, Like, are they adding value to our lives or are they just distractions?
Right. It's all about balance, enjoying the little things, but also staying focused on what really matters.
Exactly. It's about making conscious choices about how we spend our time and money and energy.
Sometimes it feels like life itself can be a bit frivolous with all its unexpected twists and turns and, just general craziness. Speaking of unpredictable, that brings us to our next word, erratic.
Ah, yes. Erratic. It describes those things that are all over the place, unpredictable, inconsistent.
Like you never know what's going to happen next.
Right. It's like the weather can be erratic, right? One minute it's sunny, the next minute it's pouring rain. Or have you ever been stuck behind an erratic driver on the road?
Oh my gosh, yes. Those people who are constantly speeding up and slowing down and changing lanes for no reason. Talk about a recipe for road rage.
Right. But, erratic can also describe, like, someone's behavior or the stock market or even a plot twist in a movie that comes out of nowhere. It's basically anything that lacks a clear pattern or predictability.
It's a good reminder that, life doesn't always go according to plan. Sometimes things happen in a way that just leaves us scratching our heads.
Definitely. And sometimes those erratic moments can actually be the most interesting and memorable ones that keep us on our toes.
Okay, for our last word in this segment, let's talk about a quality that's super important for fairness and justice: impartial.
Impartial. Ah, yes. This one's all about being objective and unbiased, making decisions based on facts and evidence rather than personal feelings or prejudices.
It's like that saying, justice is blind, right? It's about weighing all the evidence fairly and making a decision that's right, regardless of your own personal opinions.
Exactly. And the script mentioned how important impartiality is in fields like law, journalism, and conflict resolution. In those situations, it's crucial to be able to remain neutral and consider all sides of an issue.
It's easy to talk about being impartial, but it's got to be really hard to actually do it, especially when you're dealing with situations that are emotionally charged.
Oh, for sure. It takes a lot of self-awareness and discipline to step back from your own biases and truly listen to and consider different perspectives.
Okay, wow. This has been such a crazy ride through all these amazing adjectives. I feel like we've covered everything from the nostalgia of our past to the meticulousness of our work to the ambivalence of our decisions.
And we still got one more word to go. A word that speaks to those challenges that, sometimes make us want to just hide under the covers.
All right, folks, stay tuned, because in our final segment, we're going to face our fears and dive into the meaning of daunting. Don't miss it. Okay, so we're back and ready to tackle our final word, and it's a big one: daunting.
Yeah, daunting definitely has a way of making you feel like a little bit intimidated.
You're telling me, just hearing the word makes me think of those really challenging tasks that make you want to just give up before you even start.
I totally get it. Like, it's that feeling you get when you're facing something that seems way bigger than you, like almost impossible to overcome.
Exactly. It's like, standing at the bottom of Mount Everest and knowing you have to climb to the top, or staring at a blank page when you have a massive writing assignment due.
Or like having to give a presentation to a huge audience when public speaking is like your worst nightmare.
Oh, don't even get me started on public speaking. That's definitely one of my biggest fears.
Yeah.
It's just so nerve-wracking.
Oh, I feel you. Public speaking can be super daunting. But it's interesting. It's actually a really common fear.
Really? So I'm not alone in feeling like I'm going to pass out every time I have to give a presentation.
Nope, not at all. A lot of people feel that way. And it's okay to feel intimidated by challenges. It's a natural human response.
So you're saying it's okay to feel scared. Like, we shouldn't beat ourselves up for feeling a little overwhelmed by those daunting tasks.
Exactly. In fact, acknowledging those feelings is actually a really important step in overcoming them.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess it's like, you can't run away from your fears. You have to face them head on.
Right. And instead of letting those daunting feelings paralyze you, try to reframe them as like a sign that you're pushing yourself to grow.
So it's like, hey, fear, I see you there, but I'm not going to let you stop me.
Exactly. Turn that fear into fuel and use it to motivate you to tackle those challenges head on. And, the script mentions how rewarding it can be to overcome those daunting tasks.
Oh, yeah, totally. There's nothing quite like that feeling of accomplishment when you've finally conquered something that seemed impossible.
It's like a huge boost to your confidence, and you realize that you're capable of so much more than you thought you were.
It's like leveling up in a video game or something.
Right. And the more you push yourself outside of your comfort zone and face those daunting challenges, the less daunting they'll become over time.
You know what? That's a really good point. It's like the more you practice facing your fears, the easier it gets.
Exactly. So don't shy away from those daunting tasks. Embrace them as opportunities to grow and learn and become a more resilient and capable person.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. That's actually really inspiring.
It is, isn't it? And it just goes to show that even the most daunting challenges can be overcome with the right mindset and a little bit of courage.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into these 19 amazing adjectives. I don't know about you, but I feel like my vocabulary has definitely been expanded.
Mine too. It's been such a fun and insightful journey exploring all these powerful words.
And, it's not just about expanding our vocabulary. It's about using these words to express ourselves more clearly and effectively and to connect with others on a deeper level.
Totally. And here's a little something to think about. As you go out into the world and start using these new words, pay attention to how they make you feel and how other people react to them. Language is such a powerful tool, and it can really make a difference in how we communicate and connect with each other.
That's such a great point. All right, folks, that's all for this deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed the journey and that you're feeling inspired to use your newfound vocabulary to, go out there and make your mark on the world.
Keep learning, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep having fun with language.
That's it for today, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.